everybody's doing well. Thanks for coming to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you press the notification and smash that like button. Rap Star Boxing Knowledge in the house with Roper Dope. We're going to be talking about the Errol Spence, Danny Garcia post-fight thoughts, and let's get straight to it. So, great fight last night. It was really good to see Errol Spence come back in the ring. A lot of conspiracy theories were answered. A lot of questions were answered. And to be really honest with you, it was, was it the Errol Spence that we've seen before or was it better? We're going to get to that. And did we see enough from Danny Garcia in that fight? But, as far as we go to topic, I want to introduce another great man in the boxing game, Roper Dope. Roper Dope, what's going on, bro? Roper Dope, I can't hear you. Are you there, bro?
Yeah, hi, Rapstar.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Roper Dope. How you feeling, bro?
Yeah, I'm all good. I watched that fight last night. There's a lot to actually look at it, think about it. But it was a good night of boxing. Good viewing for the fans. And I think it was good rounds in for both fighters.
So okay, let's just get to it, man. We're not gonna be on this channel for long. We got other things going on, so let's just cook it straight away, man. So Roper Dope, was you happy in the whole event as it turned out? Was you happy to see Errol Spence come back in the ring after through a life and death situation? Let's just start with that. How did you see Errol Spence in the fight, and how did you feel that Errol Spence performed? And let's just talk about how you felt that Danny Garcia was in the fight.
Look, I think I'm going to have to go along with the rest of the boxing fraternity. I think everybody was glad to see Errol Spence come back from that horrific accident that he went through. Obviously, the injuries were bad. Everyone was worried about him. Everyone was scared. Will we see Errol Spence again? Have we seen a career get cut short? But fortunately, to I think everyone's maybe not the Garcia camp, but to everyone else's pleasure, it was good to see that Errol Spence Jr. looks like he's back, he's alive, he's kicking, and he looks like he had a serious camp. He looks like he had a good old camp with Derek James. I guess this was something even they were somewhat. I think it would be hard pressed for them not to have had some concern about before coming back. Yes, he did say he was sparring light heavyweights and heavyweights, so maybe he was tested a little bit. But you know how it is, Rapstar. We've seen this game for a long time. These guys, one thing's training and being in the gym and sparring. It's a whole different ball game when you actually come into fight, and especially against a big, heavy-handed puncher and a puncher with both hands in the, namely Danny Swift Garcia.
I mean, we got to look at it this way, though. I mean, did I see Errol Spence better than I saw him before? That's my first question to myself. And let me just touch on this, right? Errol Spence looked very disciplined in that fight. And Errol Spence used all his advantages, his reach, his jab was winning the fight. And Errol Spence was very composed. He wasn't any emotional in that fight. He didn't come out of his game plan. And even the times when Danny was trying to, land his own 1-2s, it was like at the end of the day, Errol was kind of like, he was never really that hurt in the fight, but he was very on edge, should I say. Should I say that made him perform really well? To me, Errol Spence does not need to be in a dogfight all the time. You know what I mean? Errol Spence is a good boxer, and he used his boxing in that fight. But one thing I'm a bit frustrated about, and I'm going to be very straight up about this, Danny Garcia, when he kind of got somewhere in the momentum in some of those rounds, I saw round 4, round 9, even round 10, Danny Garcia landed some good shots, but he could never ever follow through with it. It was like Danny Garcia is always losing some X factor in the welterweight division. It's like Danny Garcia. Every time he had landed a good shot, he couldn't follow through. He's just totally sticking with a counter puncher, and you are never gonna win a fight against Errol the Truth Spence Jr. trying to counter punch him. He will constantly outwork you. And even Angel Garcia, I've never seen Angel Garcia frustrated like he was yesterday. Angel Garcia was telling Danny, stop waiting for the counter punch. You got to get them shots off. You got to be the guy who's got to get those shots off. And he could never do that. And I think a lot of that credibility is to do with Errol Spence. Errol Spence never let Danny Garcia into the fight. How you feel about that, Roper?
WPK, I'm going to have to go with you on a lot of what you said. I think you're right. I think Danny's been struggling in this welterweight division for a little while now. In the last couple of fights that he had, the more notable fights with Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, and it's been tough going for him. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to say this, and you know what? But look, before I say anything, man, I'm going to put it out there to anyone listening and to any boxing fans, and if Danny Swift Garcia is listening to me, man, I'm a fan of you. I like Danny Swift Garcia, man. I'm a fan of him. But I'm going to have to say something. Danny Swift Garcia doesn't seem like he's evolved at all from the fighter that we saw burst onto the scene when he knocked out Amir King Khan. And I don't see him evolving. He seems to be doing the same thing. He's just stuck with his style of being the counter puncher. And that it seems like that's what he just wants to keep on doing. Now, the lessons were there to be learned from the Keith Thurman fight and the Sean Porter fight. That, man, you got to do more. You got to do more. These are young, active, hungry fighters, and they want it just as bad as you. And you cannot sit there waiting for them and, thinking I'm going to throw my counterpunch. Everybody knows that game plan. Now, what happened here last night is Angel Garcia wanted Danny Garcia to perform like Sean Porter, put Sean Porter pressure on. But the thing here is, Rapstar, we're talking about Danny Garcia here. You can't turn him into Sean Porter overnight. Sean Porter is the one that comes after you. Sean Porter is the man that comes with non-stop pressure, that is relentless in his attack, and has got a solid chin that he keeps coming at you and he keeps coming at you. That's Sean Porter. And obviously, when you see that a fight has been beaten or had problems in any sort of way, and where the success has lied for his opponent, well, that's obviously the game plan that you start to follow. You think, okay, this gives us a bit of a roadmap. Now, I don't expect Danny Garcia to turn into Sean Porter. I don't expect him to turn into Showtime. But what I did expect is, man, at least meet us halfway. Don't just sit there being the counterpuncher that we've always known you to be. And you're a great counterpuncher, Danny Swift. You're a great counterpuncher, and we love you for that. And we've learned to love you that over the career. And we ain't here dogging on Danny Swift Garcia, man. He's a true welterweight champion. We love the guy. But the bottom line is, man, you had to up your game. Your father was telling you that throughout the game. Now, look, I know that Errol Spence Jr.'s, pistol of a jab that was coming out was a problem. But the thing is, man, I think even the casual fans out there know that when you've got someone who's got a 2-inch, reach advantage on you, a height advantage on you, a 4-inch reach advantage over you, man, you don't sit there at a distance just waiting on him and allowing him to keep pushing that jab out. You got to make that. You got to make that shit ugly, dog.
I mean, look, I got to stop you here, Roper, because there's something you reminded me of. Danny Garcia told the whole boxing world he's not going to leave this he's going to bring everything to the ring. And where he went wrong with the Keith Thurman fight and the Sean Porter fight, he said, I'm not going to let that happen. But most of Danny Garcia's wins is coming as a counter puncher. And I know that he was a dominant fighter at super lightweight, but at the welterweight division, he's always getting stuck with the elite fighters. And even when Danny Garcia's doing okay, he cannot come with anything after that. He doesn't follow up. And Angel Garcia was saying it all night that my son needs to start following up. He cannot just wait for the counter punch. If you remember, they interviewed Angel Garcia in the middle of the fight, and he said, "Look, my son's waiting for a counter punch, and I've told him that he needs to go in there and put something else together and stop waiting for the counter punch. He just needs to let these shots go." And Danny Garcia always stops letting his hands go. And it's starting to fucking piss me off, bro. Because I'm a big Danny Garcia fan. But when it comes to the welterweight division, I'm not such a big fan of Danny Garcia. And I'm going to tell you why, Roper-Dope. Danny Garcia is putting himself into a bracket now, yeah? As a gatekeeper for the elite welterweight fighters. And that, to me, shows me that Danny Garcia is missing something in the welterweight division against the elites. Because if you're going to wait a counter punch on Errol Spence Jr., you're fucked. Errol Spence is going to outbox most of those guys. So what was Danny's game plan? Was it just to try and fucking hurt Errol? Because that's not a... Bro, that was a pay-per-view fight. America had to pay $75 for that fight, bro. And for me, Danny Garcia, every time Danny Garcia, he did well, he stayed in his own track. He didn't follow it up. So it's a frustrating situation to see within such a great fighter like Danny Garcia when he comes to the welterweight. He's missing something, bro. Or am I just saying that Errol Spence is just too good and he didn't let Danny Garcia come into the fight in any aspect or form? And I just want to shout out to Popo. Mr. Popo's in the house. Silver Street Loma, 2011's in the house. Black and Brown Boxing. What up, Black and Brown? Black and Brown's in the house. But look, man, for me, Danny Garcia, look, he won 3 rounds. I gave him 3 rounds in that fight, bro. And there was a couple of swing rounds, Roper-Dope. And I was trying to give one of those swing rounds to Danny. But even if I want to be fair as fuck, it's 9-3 Errol Spence. I gave it 9 rounds to 3. If I want to be really, really kind and give one of those swing rounds, maybe I can go 8-4. But 9-3 Errol Spence Jr. How did you score the fight, Roper-Dope?
I struggle to argue with you there, man. I saw it the same way. I gave Errol Spence 9 rounds. At best, if you, like you said, at best, if you want to be generous, you can maybe say, okay, he had 8, Danny had 4, but it's hard to push for 4. I'm gonna have to go 9-3, man. 9-3 to Errol. And look.
So we both agree, 9 rounds to 3. I mean, I gave Errol 9 rounds to 3. There was one swing round in there that I could have been kind to Danny, but that was it. There was nothing else Danny did for me. I mean, I predicted this before the fight happened, if you remember. I said it would be unanimous decision. Errol Spence Jr., 9-3, maximum 8-4. But let's go to Errol for a sec. Were you happy to see Errol in the ring? Did you think he lost a step in that ring? Did you feel like the accident had him a little bit more defensive? Like, was he more defensive fighter? Did you think that Errol Spence looked great? Let's ask you about that first.
Man, Errol Spence Jr. looked like Errol Spence Jr. That man came out like the truth that he is. I was impressed. He surpassed my expectations. Even though, if you remember when we talked last on here, I did obviously, like yourself, also say that I had Errol winning that fight, but he surpassed my expectations. He came good. His jab was good. He had great output, and I think this is where he beats a lot of people. His output in punches, his output in punches was excellent. He threw way more than Danny. And this is where Sean Porter was interesting for Errol Spence, because Sean Porter also throws a lot of punches. And but like I said, Errol Spence looked good. Based on what I saw right now, I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about someone like Crawford, but Errol's looking good, man. I would not write Errol off. Errol is looking good. He
Oh
gave
yeah,
himself a
Terrence
good.
Crawford. That was really nice to see. Terrence Crawford finally came. Terrence Crawford got himself known yesterday, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I was happy to see Terrence Crawford make himself known in the venue yesterday. That was amazing to see Terrence Crawford make his way at the Errol Spence Danny Garcia fight. But for me, Roper, I would have appreciated if Terrence Crawford could have bullied himself into the post fight or in the ring or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we can say that, but we're living in unprecedented times right now. We've got a pandemic on. There's probably security that's tight, but I think he sent a message there. He came. I mean, Errol was saying, "Well, I don't go to his fights, so I don't care too much about him. I'm not worried about watching his fights." But I think Terrence Crawford sent a message. Terrence Crawford came in, and I think he wanted to be seen. He wanted to be seen to let everybody know that, look, I'm here and don't be counting me out. So
Yeah, but you know one thing about Errol Spence, they asked him about Manny Pacquiao. He said, I don't want to talk about it. They asked him about Terrence Crawford. He says, I don't want to talk about that right now. And they asked him about Canelo, and he said he don't want to talk about it. So he showed the same energy for all the fighters that they asked him about. Maybe he just, happy to come back after such a long layoff. Part of me thinks that Errol's just happy that, he had to get rid of that ring rust as well. And some part of him is just like happy to be back. He nearly died. I mean, the man is still the number one welterweight champion for me. You know what I mean? And he's got a really good resume now. He beat Kell Brook when Kell Brook was good. He came to England and took the title from Kell, and then he had some of these fights with Lamont and Algiers and all that. But then we had those fights with, what's his name? Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a 4-weight world champion, isn't he? Right? I mean, yeah, Mikey Garcia is not a full-on welterweight, but Mikey Garcia is a good name. Errol Spence totally outboxed Mikey. He won the dogfight against Sean Porter. Now he's beaten Danny Garcia. He's the number one welterweight, bro. And there's nobody can say nothing to me. Errol Spence is the number one welterweight. Yeah, we can argue that Manny Pacquiao is, the one of the best resumes and a legend and an all-time, Hall of Famer. But Manny Pacquiao fights when he wants to fight now. Manny Pacquiao's in the game as is like on his name now. He's like more of what's he doing now? He's a president, not president, but he's more into his politics and the stuff that he's doing for his country in Philippines, right? So Manny Pacquiao, yeah, he's the greatest if you want to talk about resume and what he's done, an 8-weight world champion. But Manny Pacquiao fights who he wants to fight. The real fight now is Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. These are the two that really got a fight. And by Terrence Crawford coming into Texas yesterday and showing that he's interested in the Errol Spence fight, that really did a lot for me. Because I never see Terrence Crawford going anywhere. He never makes no noise. So that was good to see Terrence Crawford make it known that I'm interested in this fight, in the winner.
I
But
don't
look,
think.
I just want to say this, before you come
Yeah,
to the mic and take the platform, is that Errol Spence, for me, definitely didn't show me that the accident has damaged him in any way. Errol Spence, for me, showed me that, in fact, it's made him a bit more cautious. And it showed me that he's using his intelligence in that ring. But at the same time, Errol Spence is using all his advantages and using his reach and, using his intelligence and being smart in the ring. And that's what he's got to do with Danny Garcia. Because for me, nobody's beaten Danny Garcia as bad as what even like Errol, the beating that Errol put on Danny yesterday. Nobody's beaten Danny like that. Keith Thurman didn't beat Danny too convincingly. It was a split decision. Remember?
yeah, that was more a closer fight. The only time I remember Danny looking like he was a bit damaged is his fight against Zab Judah. and that was more towards the end. Zab Judah gave him some problems, which was going to bring me on to my next point. Actually, is that it seems like Danny Garcia seems to have problems with real pure boxers. I mean, with Keith Thurman, it was reasonably close. With Sean Porter, it was reasonably close. But if you look at the pure boxers, someone like an Errol Spence Jr., someone like even that Mauricio Herrera, who he fought in Puerto Rico. I mean, even that fight. I mean, that guy was not, hardly ranked amongst these guys, and and a lot of people think Danny Garcia lost that fight. Zab Judah, another one with boxing skills. He's another one that gave him problem. And even if you want to take it as far back as, Amir Khan, before Amir Khan recklessly got caught with that left hook at on the ear or behind the ear, he looked like he was boxing Danny Garcia's head off. So
Amir Khan was boxing his head off more than anybody else has ever boxed Danny off. Do you remember Amir Khan had Danny Garcia's face all bruised up on it?
Yes. So going back to that fight, I know we're saying nobody's put a beating like this on Danny Garcia, but I think Danny Garcia has had a couple of people that have given him a little bit of damage. And yes, Amir Khan definitely was one. In fact, Amir Khan, I think, gave more of a beating to Danny Garcia prior to that knockdown than anyone has. It was, if you remember Danny Garcia's face, he looked in shock at what had happened to him when he went back to the round.
I just want to reply to one of the comments.
Shot.
As you're speaking, we're getting comments. So David Roberts says, indeed, Amir Khan was winning, but he can't take a punch. So what are we talking about? Well, let me tell you something, David Robert. If you're fucking listening to the chat properly, right? The man just turned around and said that Amir Khan was winning the fight and outboxing in the fight until he got clipped. So what part of that did you not fucking understand before you make a comment like that on my channel? So David, come on, man. Stop being a hater, right? And start being a bit sensible. We never said what you're trying to imply. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, so exactly coming back to my point, where the message we're trying to put out there is that it seems like Danny Garcia seems to have problems with someone who's a really good boxer. Anyone who's a really good boxer is where Danny Garcia seems to have problems. I mean, you've got people that are pressure fighters, someone like Sean Porter. You've got someone who's a mix, who's got an equal boxing sort of skill level as maybe a Danny Garcia, maybe an edge to it in Keith one-time Thurman. And he's got some power himself. But coming back to what we're saying is that it always seems that anyone with a far superior boxing IQ and a skill set of ring IQ seems to be giving Danny Garcia problems. And Danny Garcia needs to evolve. Now, whether he can evolve from this, I don't know. No. And one thing that really worried me, and is slightly digressing for what we're talking about, but one thing that really concerned me is I don't think I've ever seen Angel Garcia publicly give such a rollicking to about Danny Garcia before. I've not seen him be so critical of Danny Garcia at a press conference. How I don't think you can not say that there's not going to be some cracks in the relationship there. I think there's been a little untold history there. Reading between the lines, it looks like there's been a little bit of tension there before, because I saw an interview of Danny Garcia, of Angel Garcia before, and he was basically saying that he's learned over time to try and work more with Danny and respect the fact that he's a grown man and he's a father, he's a husband. So he said, I've learned that I need to sort of be a bit careful about how I come across with him, and I've learned things as we've gone along the relationship.
Yeah, but is that really good for Danny Garcia? What you got to recognize is, right, Angel cannot be sympathetic towards his son in the corner. He should have told his son like he was feeling frustrated, because you could see the frustration in Angel Garcia yesterday. And that was the first time Angel didn't make any excuses. Did you see that?
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, look, man, if you want to be critical, be critical. But
David, wait, let me just tell David this. David, don't get upset, man. I wasn't coming at you, mate. So don't come out with them stupid comments before I kick you the fuck off the channel. I want you on this channel, so stop trolling, bro. Carry on, Rope Dope. Carry on, bro.
Yeah. So what we're basically saying here is that whether it's something that's you know that needs to be said, which I guess is critical, and yeah, it's constructive criticism. So yes, he does need to hear it, and he does need to know, because all of a sudden, if you saw in the 12th round, we saw the devil come out of Danny Garcia. All of a sudden, he looked like a different fighter. His
Yeah,
eyes
but
were.
I'm sorry, man. I believe in what some of the fans are saying and some of the chat. I'm a big Danny Garcia fan. I am a Danny Garcia fan, but I'm frustrated with him now. I'm shaking my head. I'm really shaking my head about Danny Garcia now, because Danny Garcia, he definitely belongs with some of those elites, right? But he never performs when he gets to the welterweight position. He never actually, he just looks lazy. Now, I know it sounds bad, but part of Danny Garcia's got a problem like Adrian Broner. It is what it is. I've never ever felt like that about him too much. But Danny Garcia, he's got some issues. He's always fucking lacking following up. He seems like he's always scared to get in the pocket. And something was missing. Now, look, I'm not taking away nothing from Errol Spence's um, performance. But Errol Spence was ring rust there too, bro. The man hasn't been in the ring for over a year himself, right?
Yeah, true. Look, I'm gonna have to just come in one bit and talk about something that you just said. I don't think it's fair I don't think it's quite fair to compare Danny Garcia to Adrian Broner. And don't get me wrong, I find Adrian Broner entertaining. He's obviously talented, but the
Yeah,
thing
but
is,
Adrian Broner's lazy in the ring.
yeah, but this was a case of. I don't think this was just a case of laziness. I think Broner, yes, Broner does look lazy. When you look at him in the ring, he looks lazy. He's too busy trying to look like Floyd Mayweather. And there's a problem there with him. That's a psychological problem he's got there. With Danny, with Danny Garcia, this is someone who just looks like one style fighter. It's the same
A
thing.
one-trick
It,
pony.
it was very predictable. We saw the same old predictable Danny Garcia that we've seen before, and what we needed to see is the Danny Garcia we saw in the 12th round. Where was that Danny Garcia for the first 11? If he came like that in the first 11 rounds, it would have been a different fight. But the bottom line is, Angel Garcia's right in his criticism. In the fact that Danny didn't do enough, and that's exactly what Angel Garcia was saying in the post-fight press conference, that Danny didn't come forward, Danny didn't go with a plan, and that was the whole plan. And Danny Garcia's reply to that was, "It's easier said than done." Yeah, sure, when you've got a sharp shooting jab coming from Errol Spence, but fine, you managed to get past the jab in the 12th round, didn't you? Why didn't you get past it in the 11th? My thing about Angel Garcia, what I'm saying is, this criticism, there's constructive criticism, but should that criticism been at that level in public at a press conference, or it should have it been in private? Because I'll tell you something, if we start seeing cracks in the relationship, because it seems like there's been some cracks there before, if we start seeing cracks in a relationship between trainer and boxer and father and son, at this point of Danny Garcia's professional career, after 3 fights, that's not looking good for Danny. I mean, look, I really hope Danny Garcia can reevaluate and come back, but this is his third opportunity to go back to the drawing board. Well, I would say, look, he's come across a boxer before, but this was the third time that he's now being told that you should have done more, you should have done more, and he's not adapting to it. So is it a case of he's just not listening to instructions, or is it a case of he's just not capable? Okay, he pulled it out in the last round. I have to say, and maybe I'm wrong, and people may have a different opinion. I think Danny Garcia, after a certain amount of rounds went by, I think there was a case of he didn't want to be stopped, and he wanted to make sure he goes the distance. So he obviously, one thing that he noticed is, and he pointed out in the post-fight press conference, he said Spence is stronger than all the other guys. He's stronger than Thurman. He's stronger than Porter. He said he's stronger than all of them, which means that he felt Spence's power. Now, if he's felt Spence's power and he was standing back, what does that tell you? That tells me that you didn't want to get something heavy landed on you by Spence. You were a bit hesitant to throw because of his power. That's why he was saying it's easier said than done.
I think
Because
we need to. I think we need to face the facts now, right? This was his third time for a world title shot in the welterweight division, right? Third time. You just told me third time, right? Now, Danny Garcia is putting himself in a position now where he's a gatekeeper. Whether people like it or not, Danny Swift Garcia, which was one of the top boys at super lightweight, he's becoming a gatekeeper at welterweight. And, you know, it just goes to show you, you said something which kind of makes sense. Maybe Danny Garcia just ain't got it to win those fights, to win those competitive fights in the welterweight division, right? And it's putting Danny Garcia in a position. I'm not saying Danny Garcia ain't got no big fights left in him. He surely does. But the fights that I see left in him is the guys who are coming up to want to make a mark in the welterweight division. Where does Danny Garcia go from here, Ropedo? And then I'll tell you where I think he should go. But let's start with where you think Danny Garcia needs to go from here.
Well, one thing for sure, I certainly wouldn't advise him to go up to 154. That certainly doesn't suit him. Man, I think what Danny's now got to do is he's got to try and maybe go back while there's going to be talk of Spence Jr. and Crawford fighting or them being matched up with Pacquiao. Because you see, what's happened here, all of a sudden, we've got three fighters that have pulled away from the other three. And the three fighters that have pulled away are Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford, and Errol Spence Jr. These are the three fighters that have pulled away. The three that are sitting underneath are Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Keith One-Time Thurman. And what I think needs to happen is those guys need to duke it out once more because they were competitive fights. They were close fights. I think the Keith One-Time Thurman fight, was that the one that was the split decision? So there's unfinished business there. And what these guys need to do is duke it out with each other. And while these three duke it out with each other, or maybe give another contender a go, what these guys need to do is be ready for whoever wins out of Spence and Crawford, or whoever wins out of Pacquiao and Spence, or Crawford and Pacquiao, whoever wins out of these guys, you know, they can come back and go and fight another one. I mean, I don't think Keith One-Time Thurman should be completely, written off here. I think he's only got one loss, and that was one loss to Manny Pacquiao. And I think there's unfinished business there as well. I'm sure he's going to want another crack at Manny Pacquiao. So I still think there's entertaining fights. Where Danny Garcia goes, I think what he needs to do is he needs to go back a couple of steps down. He needs to go back to the Sean Porter fight. He needs to go back to the Keith Thurman fight. And he needs to try and win those fights because they were close. And he needs to try and win those fights to start being mentioned and being recognized again, where he says, look, I learned from my mistakes. I've had a great training camp. I've done something different. I realized what was going wrong. My hand was messed up, or my shoulder was messed up, or something or whatever was going on where something wasn't 100% clicking. But guess what? I've righted those wrongs, and I've beaten Keith Thurman, or I've beaten Sean Porter. And guess what? I'm in the picture again. You can't hide, because if he comes back and he takes on a fight with Keith Thurman and he beats Keith Thurman, he comes back and he fights Sean Porter, all of a sudden people are going to start talking about Danny Garcia again. In truth, I don't see it happening, but that is the way I feel he has to go now.
Okay, let's get to some of the questions before I make my assessment on that. So Joe DC says, we see how busted up Danny Swift Garcia was, and Angel is known to speak his mind. We said that earlier. Angel always speaks his mind. Danny has already committed to his dad, and he already said he'll retire along with his father, so he's going to be loyal to his dad. I don't even know if that's a good move anymore to stay with Angel. I mean, look, Angel, his own dad, right? We know he loves him to bits, but he can only push him so much, Ropedo. Sometimes you need to be out of your comfort zone and training and sparring around different people and, adding just a little bit more fire or pizzazz to your game. I don't think Angel Garcia can push Danny anymore. I don't think Angel Garcia can get anything more out of Danny. And Angel was frustrated about that yesterday, right? He just can't get it out of Danny. And I just want to get to the next message. David Roberts says Danny Garcia needs to move to 140 pounds. I don't think so. I think Danny Garcia now, where he's at welterweight, by him moving down will be detrimental to his career. Because don't forget, he's been at that weight now, and he's comfortable even at that weight. But him trying to move down now he's too old for that. You got the Josh Taylors, the Ramirez, you got the Regis Progress. You've got all these guys at 140 now, right? And these are the new young lions. They got a lot of speed and they got a lot to offer. I think Danny Garcia, the way that you can rebuild from him is, I don't know how this sounds, but I reckon Danny Garcia and Terrence Crawford fight against Danny Garcia will still be a big fight because Crawford hasn't fought many opponents. Could that be the last chance for Danny Garcia to try and go for a title at the welterweight? Because I know Danny Garcia is definitely not one of these fighters who's going to want to be the gatekeeper. Can you imagine if they try and offer him the Jarrett Boot Ennis, the Virgil Ortizes, the Conor Benns? They're not going to use Danny. I mean, Danny Garcia is not a gatekeeper right this moment, but he's not far from a gatekeeper. So does he keep fighting the names which are in the top 5? Or will they try and offer him a lot of money for the young boys to come up?
No,
see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I don't see him fighting any of those young guys. Danny Garcia is a 2-time world champion, a proud champion. He's not going to fight those guys. I think he'll retire before we see that happen. That's not going to happen. He's going to stick around these 5. He certainly can't go up. I think everyone's in agreement there. He can't go up. 140 is definitely not happening. He's been sitting at welterweight for too long. He's nice and settled there. And he does well there. It's not like he's been blown out the water. He's been competitive with like some of the top guys in Thurman and Spence. Even with, well, not so much with Spence, but with Thurman and Porter, he was competitive. Look, I know everyone says that. I saw Joe DC make a comment, and it's a fair comment. He said that. Oh, Danny's going to be loyal to his father. Look, man, I think every boxer who starts out training with his father eventually, always says, well, I'm going to stay with my father. But, sometimes you just need something new, just to revitalize you, just to give you some more energy. And maybe that's what he needs, a change of atmosphere, a change of scenery. Maybe he needs to go and, train with one of the other, old school trainers, but, not just any trainer, someone who's going to work with what Danny's got, not try and completely change him, but someone that will work with what Danny's got. Danny's not, a 20-year-old fighter or 21-year-old fighter anymore. Danny's now come into the prime of his career. He's been working in his prime for a while, and you can't change him. All you can do is make tweaks and try and make him better at what he does. But one thing you're going to have to work with him is either he needs to cut off that ring a bit better, and he needs to get down and dirty. I mean, the thing is, I can't understand why the hell did Danny got. I mean, I saw another one of your guests make a comment saying that, well, he gave everything he did in the 12th round because that's the last bit of energy that he had. So what does that mean? Does that mean he was preserving his energy? Is that what that means? He was preserving his energy because he was too afraid that if he puts it all on the line, did he lack confidence in his fitness that if he really starts putting in a heavy attack in the middle rounds that he may not last to the 12th? Does that mean he walked in with a defensive mindset? These things need to be questioned. But at the same time, look, we have to be careful with where we go with this because, we can't take away credit. I think we really need to talk about what Spence Jr. did. Errol Spence Jr. fought a great fight. For someone that's just come out of an accident, he came out looking in incredible condition. He threw a barrage of punches. He had a great punch output. He had a good game plan, and he said he was a little bit rusty. I don't think anyone watching thought he was rusty. He looked good. He looked at range, and I'll tell you something. He certainly looked like the truth to me.
Okay, so let's get to this then. Danny Garcia, a lot of the people in the chat and a lot of people which are coming in the building right now, smash that like button first. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press that notification. But smash that like button. It helps the channel. And, it's totally free to smash the like button. But, I got to tell you this, Roper, though. A lot of people, like, when people suggest that Danny Garcia go down at 140, that's a no-go. Even Boz just came into the building. Boz says that Danny Garcia cannot go to 140. He'll lose too much muscle mass and he'll be weak at that division now. That's past his time now. 154, Danny Garcia does not belong at 154. He's too small and he doesn't have a reach for that. You know what I mean? And he's too flat-footed anyway. He needs to stick with where he's comfortable in his weight. I mean, how does he get a world title shot again? I mean, it's Terrence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao. I mean, let's be honest. Manny Pacquiao, Danny Garcia is a good fight for Danny Garcia. Manny Pacquiao's coming towards his retirement age. He's getting old now. You know what I mean? That's his last chances. But I'm going to tell you this, whether people like it or not. Danny Garcia is still a big draw at welterweight. Danny Garcia still will make big fights at welterweight because he's a big name. Like you said, Ropedo, you just reminded me. Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, part 2 is a good fight. It's still a big fight. Danny Garcia, Sean Porter. Danny Garcia, Virgil Ortiz. Danny Garcia, Jarrett Boot Ennis. And I'm not saying that the young boys are going to get a chance to Danny Garcia. But come on, Ropedo. By the time 2021 goes and we get to 2022, there's not going to be much money that Danny Garcia can only earn unless the young boys are going to want to come up. Like a Conor Ben. These are the guys now who are coming up in the game. So Danny Garcia is still a big name. Because let me tell you why. If you beat Danny Garcia, you still belong in the elite of welterweights. Would you agree, Ropedo?
No, I'm afraid I don't agree. I think Danny Garcia is a great fighter, but you're not talking about Danny Garcia at his best anymore. He's taken 3 losses now, and in 2021, I mean, who knows where he is? I really don't see Danny Garcia trying to take on any of these new guys, because what's in it for him? What's in it for him? I mean, at the end of the day, if he beats them, he's not going to get the credit, because he's going to say people are going to say, "Oh, those guys were up and coming; they were never any good anyway." So he's not going to get the credit. Secondly, is he going to get pay-per-view money for them? No, he's not. So because they're going to be up and coming, and Danny Garcia isn't going to hold a pay-per-view on his own. He needs a good dance partner, and the dance partners are the ones that we've already been talking about. Look, I think you can't completely write off Danny Garcia either. Even though I'm going to have to say that at the moment, I hope he does come back, but I think this fight's going to have quite a detrimental effect on him, because you've got to remember, man. Look at who he fought. He fought Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is the guy that broke Kell Brook's orbital bone, and completely bashed up Kell Brook. Kell Brook is the man that came to America and beat Sean Porter. I think we're taking a little bit away from Errol Spence here. I'm sure Danny Garcia was Danny Garcia yesterday. We wanted to see more. Angel Garcia wanted to see more, but Danny Garcia was just being Danny Garcia. We have to give Errol Spence Jr. credit for the fight that he came with, and after the layoff that he came with, and after the accident that he came with. I think the credit needs to be given to Errol Spence Jr. and Derek James. I think they must have obviously had a phenomenal camp.
Oh, let me just stop you there. Derek James definitely, for me, Derek James definitely gets trainer of the year for me.
Yeah, this is obviously something they were talking about, and I
Yeah,
think
Derek James definitely is the trainer of the year. He got two unified champions. They got their avenged their loss against Tony Harrison with Jamal Charlo, and then Errol Spence. You know, he's a unified champion. He got Errol Spence back into track after his accident. Derek James, I'm nominating Derek James for trainer of the year. That's just my own thing there that I needed to put as soon as you reminded me.
yeah, let's hope he gets that one, Rapstar. I think everyone would agree he's definitely a deserved winner of that. Okay, you know what I want to talk about, because I know that we're going to be running short of time soon. What I wanted to talk about is where do we go from here now with Errol Spence, because we've talked a lot about Danny Garcia. I think it's important we talk about the victor here in Errol Spence Jr. That where does he go here next? And remind me, because there's something I want to say, and it might be a bit brave, but I actually think Manny. Before I move on to what I want to say about Errol Spence, I just want to make a parting comment, and I think probably a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I just want you to think about it for a moment. I want you to think about the punch output of Terrence Crawford and the punch output of someone like Manny Pacquiao, the kind of fights that have been bad for Danny Garcia. And if Terrence Crawford, if there was a choice between Terrence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao to fight Danny Garcia, what would be the tougher fight for a Danny Garcia in the guys that they're fighting and the punch output that they have? So I want you to walk away with that, because I would actually think a better fight for Danny Garcia would be Terrence Crawford than Manny
Yeah, can
Pacquiao.
you explain to us? Because I had this conversation on one of my friends' channel on Speak Your Mind Sports. He's over here. He's in the building right now. D Jefferson. Hey, listen. Good Body Sports News has just arrived. Joe DC's in the house. Silver. I can't pronounce that guy's name, man. Silver Translome. It's a big name. Can you see that name, right? That's a huge name, bro. Silver something. We got Don Ramon in the house. People are just coming through. So please. When you say something like you prefer to see Danny Garcia against Terrence Crawford, you feel that's a better matchup for Danny Garcia. Can you please tell us why?
Look,
L Dog in the house. Go ahead, Roper Dog.
right, okay, I'll tell you why. Manny Pacquiao is a far busier fighter than Terence Crawford. His punch output is ridiculous. He's also a very hard puncher, but he's even, I think it's some would say it's fair to say he's even more elusive than what some of the other fighters that Danny Garcia has fought. He's even more elusive. I mean, you remember people used to compare Amir Khan with Manny Pacquiao because of their speed and their elusiveness. But if obviously we learnt later that Amir Khan's not on the same level. But Manny Pacquiao is a very tricky customer. He, as we saw in the Keith Thurman fight, he runs rings around people. The only thing that's something that can trouble him is, someone is the later rounds, and that's because of his age. Now Keith Thurman is someone who will really push forward and really try putting the pressure on in the later rounds, like he did with Manny Pacquiao, which brought him back into the ring, a bit back into the fight again. But can you see Danny Garcia after 6 rounds, 7 rounds, when Manny Pacquiao starting to slow down a little bit, to come at him the way Keith Thurman did? I don't think so. So I actually think Manny Pacquiao would put a beating on Danny Garcia like we've never seen before. That's what I see happening with Danny Garcia. I think his face would be bashed up silly against Manny Pacquiao. Terrence Crawford, I think, great fighter, great boxer, but I see a similar kind of thing as, how it was with Errol Spence. He'll be beaten skillfully. There may be a chance in the later rounds he may get broken down, but is he a harder puncher than Errol Spence? We don't know. I think people would say Errol Spence is the stronger fighter. But here's the thing: if Danny Garcia fought Terrence Crawford, I think he'll be able to sit back and be a bit defensive, like he was with Errol Spence. I think Terrence Crawford will come after him, but I think he'll be able to hold his hands up and stay a bit safe, and make sure that he gets to that 12 rounds again. Manny Pacquiao isn't going to let him off the hook like that. Manny Pacquiao is going to go after him. So this is where I think Manny Pacquiao, it's not an easy fight. The tougher fight for Manny Pacquiao is going to be more with a crafty boxer like Crawford and Errol Spence. Now we know that, but what I'm saying is for Danny Garcia, to take on a fight like Manny Pacquiao, that's going to be dangerous.
I mean, you certainly broke it down. I mean, at the end of the day, Manny Pacquiao is dangerous for anybody. But you know, at the end of the day, Manny Pacquiao comes with that uh, total crazy output, punches from everywhere. And one of the people just said they agree with you. They say that Manny Pacquiao is one of the hardest guys for anybody, apart from Floyd Mayweather. And then he said, laughing out loud. You know what I mean? Um, it just goes to show you how good Floyd was, right? And you know, these guys of today, a 41-year-old Manny Pacquiao. I mean, you know, you're talking about a man when he's ready and he's committed. You saw what he did to Keith Thurman. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past with what you said, Roper. But I do think Terrence Crawford, he's also shown me something that he can adapt really well. And when he hurts you, he wants to get you the fuck out of there. That's one thing about Terrence Crawford, that every time he hurts you, he wants to get you the fuck out of there, bro. He's really good at executing that situation. But is that only because we've only seen Terrence Crawford do that with C minus and C plus fighters? That
Look,
when he steps up in level, Roper, he might not be able to do that. Is that what you're thinking?
Look, obviously we saw Gamboa trouble him a little bit when they fought, even though he ended up finishing off Gamboa. But Gamboa did give him some problems, and you know Gamboa is a small guy, and you know we're talking about much bigger guys here. We're talking about someone like an Errol Spence. Look, no doubt Terrence Bud Crawford is a phenomenal fighter. We can see that. We don't even need to see him always in with the top fighters to recognize that. You can just see a classy fight when you see one. And he's definitely got a dog in him. You can see that Terence Crawford has got a nasty streak to him, where once he gets you, it's like he enjoys hurting you. So I definitely think that he's definitely up in that conversation. But after what we saw yesterday, I think you know Errol Spence definitely looks like you know the top dog at the moment.
So, okay, let's just get to it then now. Errol Spence came back. Let's get to Errol Spence now. We've given Danny Garcia a lot of credit because we like to cover boxing of what Danny's done in the past. And we got to make sure that we know where he's going in the future, because everybody realizes that was not the end of Danny Garcia. That was just Danny Garcia not being able to perform. But, you know, there's some good fights out there for Danny Garcia in the near future. But let's get to Errol Spence, bro. So you're happy with Errol Spence all round. You're happy with his performance because he's been in a ring rust. Not to mention that, you know, he had a really bad accident, but you're happy with him all round. And now, who do you want to see Errol Spence fight next? That's what I want to come to around Roper.
Look, in all honesty, I think everybody wants to see the Crawford Spence fight. There's obviously some disagreement going on. Excuse me. There's obviously some disagreement going on. Errol Spence is saying he wants a 60-40 split in his favor. He says he's the bigger name. He says he's got 2 belts. And to be honest, you know what? He does have an argument there. But at the same time, Terence Crawford is saying, "Well, I hold a belt as well, and you know, I'm pound for pound number one, so I should be taking the 60-40 split." Guys, come on, man, stop playing. We just want to see you both in the ring. You know, do it for the fans. You know, are we going to see another repeat of Mayweather Pacquiao and see you guys fighting when
Yeah,
you're
but
old?
you're a very, very experienced boxing and knowledgeable guy. I mean, do you blame? Okay, look, is Terence Crawford overpricing himself? Right. Look, let me tell you why. He cleaned up 2 weight divisions, and now he's at the 3rd weight. So he also has a belt at the 3rd weight, right? So at the end of the day, it's not like Terence Crawford doesn't bring a big resume to the table, but at the end of the day, 60% against Errol Spence, that's overpricing yourself. Because look, Errol Spence has the IBF and the Prestige WBC. What does Terence Crawford have, bro? The WBO, right? So when we were growing up, what was our prestige belts, Roper Dog?
Well, look, I've always looked at the belts in this way, and that is we've always known the WBC to be the number one belt. Following that is the WBA, then we see the IBF, and then we see the WBO. Obviously, now we have the ring. Then now we have diamond belts, and there's all these other belts coming for us traditionalists from before. We see the WBC as the number one belt, and then obviously, and Errol Spence is the one that seems to be holding that. So these guys need to be stop playing. I think this is less about percentage, and I think this is more about getting a psychological edge over your opponent. I think it's okay. Yeah, there may be a somewhat of a money factor in there, but the bottom line is, this seems more psychological. I often see these kind of situations, unless it is ridiculous, unless you've got some unknown trying to expect the same money. But, we've both got, two good names over here, and they're arguing 60-40, and they're both saying, well, the fight's not going to happen otherwise. These guys need to come to the table. I mean, we are here on, Rapstar Boxing Knowledge, as, as fans, as boxing enthusiasts, as people who aren't just there to commentate on fights, but we're here to.
You want to see the fight.
We're here to represent the fans. We're talking for the fans. As our late Tupac Shakur used to say, we represent the street. So you got to listen.
Yeah, and let's be honest.
Because without us, you guys wouldn't be anywhere. So you got to listen to what we got to say.
Yeah, look, I just want to say a shout out to Yak Faces in the building. Papa Cap has made it in the building. D Hodges is in the building. Everybody's coming through the building, man. Smash that like button. You know what I mean? And subscribe to the channel. But look, I'm going to say this right now, bro. Errol the Truth Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford, it has to happen. It just fucking has to happen, bro. And this is bad for boxing. As much as we love the game of boxing, me and Ropadog are the kind of guys that want to not just see those fights, but if there was no pandemic, I'm sure to say, Ropadog, that's the kind of fight that we'll take a couple of days out and go and see, right?
100%.
I know Ropadog ain't playing. Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Ropadog's going to take a flight and come even if it's for one day. Am I right? I know you've done these kind of crazy things before, but, you got to appreciate, man. Terrence Crawford made it to to Texas yesterday. He showed his face. And everybody says that he doesn't make himself present. But he came. So it shows me that Terrence Crawford wants all the smoke. Let's somebody in the chat. Give me a sec, bro. I don't know who this is, but let's give him a chance. Hamza, what's happening, Hamza? What are you saying, mate? Can you hear us?
I can just about hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
You're crackling a bit.
All right, give me a sec. Okay, Hamza can't hear me, bro. He just sent me a message. Can everybody hear me on the chat?
I hear you.
Let me know if you can hear me on the chat. What's that?
Okay, I hear you better now.
Okay, Hamza, can you hear me? Oh, he came out the chat. I think we're having some technical problems sometimes, so you got to bear with us. You know what I mean? But let me see if he's still back there. All right, he's probably coming back anyway. My main thing is, right, I want to see Terrence Crawford, Errol the Truth Spence Jr. in the ring now. Enough is enough. But look, let's just keep it real right here from London. We know our boxing, right? And we know that if you're holding the WBC, IBF title, and the other guy's got the WBO, Errol Spence deserves more share in this fight. We got to keep it logical and facts here. Errol Spence has 2 belts, okay? And the only way this fight becomes a 50-50 fight for me, Ropedope, is if Bob Arum can get the fight with Terrence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao. Because if Terrence Crawford, just say if he edges the Manny Pacquiao fight and he wins the WBA super title, well, then you've got 2 titles with Terrence Crawford and then you have 2 titles with Errol Spence. That's a 50-50 fight. Whether it's pay-per-view, the gate money, the money for the whole fight is 50-50. But right now, I think Errol Spence is being fair, saying, look, I'll give you 60, I'll take 60, and I'm going to give you 40. But Terrence Crawford ain't happy with those numbers. So what do you say to that, Robert?
Yeah, to be honest, if you were going to ask me, I'd say the same thing. I know Terrence Crawford is sitting at the top of the pound for pound list, but I've got to say,
Yeah,
I
but
would
I'm going
have.
to stop you here as well. You know me, I'm a very loud and very raw channel. My channel's raw. Terrence Crawford's got the weakest resume as a pound for pound guy. Keep going, bro. I just want to let you know that. Because if you want to talk about pound for pound, Derek James and even so many other professional fighters have said that Terrence Crawford's resume is a weak resume for a pound for pound. But keep cooking because I want people to know these things, you know?
Well, I mean, look, there may be an argument for that, but the thing is, he's been clamoring about it for such a long time that he should be number one pound for pound. I think he's more reached the top pound for pound more after Vasily Lomachenko obviously had his fall. So I think we've got to look at that. That did he climb because Terrence Crawford climbed, or did he climb because Vasily Lomachenko lost?
Sorry, I lost you there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, did you hear what I said there? Did you
I
hear
heard
what I said?
everything you said. Yeah, Jimmy Boxing's in the house, Chopsticks in the house, Hamza's in the house, Pigeons in the house. Yeah, just newcomers are coming in the house. Subscribe to the channel, mate, and don't forget to press the like button. You know what I mean? Smash that like button. No, you. Can you please say that again for the people who just came into in the show right now? Can you just say that again?
Look, what I'm saying is, I believe it was Vasily Lomachenko that was pound for pound number one, right? Before Terrence Crawford got up, took that spot. And what I'm saying is it a case of Terrence Crawford earned his way to the top, or was it a case of he just found himself at the top because Vasily Lomachenko lost?
I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, Terrence Crawford is the pound for pound guy with the ESPN. But you go and talk to different pound for pound platforms. Canelo Alvarez is the number one pound for pound guy with a lot of different boxing fraternities. But when you look at ESPN, they're going to favor their own fighters like they did with Lomachenko, right? But once Lomachenko lost, they put Terrence Crawford as the pound for pound guy, correct?
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. That Terrence Crawford, who didn't exactly sit there and take some amazing win, to all of a sudden, all right, he fought Amir Khan recently, but I mean, what I'm saying is, what did Terrence Crawford really do to all of a sudden catapult to number one? He didn't do nothing that was that outstanding. It was because Vasily Lomachenko lost to Teofimo Lopez. If Vasily Lomachenko didn't lose to Teofimo Lopez, number one spot right now, we wouldn't be talking Mr. Terrence Bud Crawford. We would still be talking about Vasily Lomachenko being on that number, being at that number one spot.
So let me ask you this then. Who do you have at the number one spot? Do you have Canelo? Do you have Inoa? You know Inoa, the monster Inoa, or do you have Usyk, or do you have Jamel Charlo? I mean, who
I,
you
I got Canelo at the top, man.
right?
I've
A
got,
lot of boxing fraternities around the world have got Canelo, okay, as the number one pound for pound guy. Terrence Crawford seems to be the number one pound for pound guy when you're talking about ESPN and the people which are around his promotional camp and all his fans.
well,
It's just,
ESPN need to tune into Rap Star Boxing and listen to what us guys have got to say, because
I mean, look,
you've got.
all the people are agreeing with us. Friendly Fire's got Canelo number one. L Dog's got Canelo, Inoa, and three Usyk. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to say this to people: if you guys are going to have a pound for pound list, right? And let me just explain to Ropedope. I go to some channels and they have a pound for pound list for 3 years behind of what you've done in the last 3 years, right? This is how they look at it. Well, I'm going to tell you this, bro. If you want to go like that, let's go a little bit longer than that. What about fucking Manny Pacquiao? I mean, Manny Pacquiao's still active, isn't he?
He is still active.
I mean, Manny Pacquiao's a pound for pound guy. He's an eight weight world champion. I mean, you want to talk about resumes? This man, Manny Pacquiao, how can he not be in the pound for pound list then?
Okay, I think we're getting something a little bit mixed up here. Manny Pacquiao, he's done amazing things. Okay, he's as you said, he's a multiple weight champion. He's been in the game a long time, and you know what? Manny Pacquiao is not just one of the pound for pound champions, but he's a Hall of Famer. Now, with Manny Pacquiao, what we're talking about someone who's Hall of Fame. He's cemented his spot there. Hall of Fame is where he's going to be. But the thing is, we've got to look at current form. And yeah, he did brilliant beating Keith Thurman, and that certainly helped him. But what I'm saying is, you've also got to look at he lost to Floyd Mayweather. He got knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez. So you've got to also take that into account, because pound for pound rankings aren't all-time rankings. But pound for pound rankings come from what's been going on recently in your career and who you've been defeating recently. And even though he did fantastic in beating Keith Thurman and doing what he did, before that he's had a couple of blips like I said, with Floyd Mayweather and Juan Manuel Marquez. When's the last blip that Canelo had? Canelo's been beating up pretty much on almost every man on pretty much everyone since Floyd Mayweather. And I know Kovalev was probably a bit on the slide, but he's beaten Kovalev. I mean, everyone he's coming across. He's got a great fight coming up with Callum Smith soon, and that's going to be a fantastic fight. I think Callum Smith's a great fighter. He looks great. He's tall. He's powerful. He's fast. So I think that's going to be a really good fight. And I think if Canelo comes, I'm licking my lips for that fight, because Callum Smith, I think, is like 6'2" or 6'3", and Canelo Alvarez is like 5'8". So there's like several inches. There's like a 6 inch height advantage for Callum Johnson. He's tall. He's quick. I'm surprised Canelo Alvarez has taken that fight. At this stage of his career, but I'm really keen to see that. So but Canelo Alvarez has had a good run. He's beaten up on a man like Kovalev, who came from a higher weight, and so I think he's a deserved number one pound for pound.
See, the difference
champion.
with Canelo, right? Canelo goes up and down in weights. He doesn't just stay in one place. He can go up to 175 and win a world title. He went up to 168, and now he wants to dominate at 168. And, that just goes to show you that Canelo's trying to achieve greatness. You know what I mean? He's trying to get it. And, even though people are saying, well, how come he's not fighting Kalen Plant or Jamal Charlo? Why is he? Callum Smith's a fucking unified champion, bro. He's a ring champion and a lineal champion too. What are you trying to say about Callum Smith? He's a champion as well. So Canelo is still fighting champions after champions, regardless of who the champions are. People say, well, Canelo went up to 175 because Kovalev is the weakest champion. Well, they weren't saying that about Kovalev before, were they?
Well, look, listen, I'm giving Canelo Alvarez credit here. But that's not a knock at Callum Johnson. I'm at Callum Smith. I'm saying this about Canelo Alvarez because I rate Callum Smith. But this is why I'm saying it's going to be a great fight, and it's only going to.
Can you tell people in America? A lot of people, when I speak in America, some platforms don't have they have Kalen Plant as a better fighter than Callum Smith, and I want to ask, Callum Smith's done more than Kalen Plant. But when I speak to some of the Americans, they favor Kalen Plant. Go ahead, Roberto.
Look, I just think America needs to give Callum Smith a chance, and I think we're going to see that very soon when he fights Canelo. He's a dangerous fight for Canelo in my eyes. Look, Caleb Plant, obviously, we've all been seeing him. We know that, he's a serious player in, around there. But and everybody knows about him in America. I don't want to talk too much about Caleb Plant. I want to talk about Callum Smith because he's the one that's fighting Canelo. And I think people have.
Caleb Plant didn't step up to the plate. He said that
Uh,
that's not enough time for him.
but
Because
I
Callum Smith stepped up. Callum Smith's coming from Liverpool and going all the way to Texas to fight Canelo Alvarez. Give him some respect, right? Rope-a-dope?
100%, and I think people need to give. Listen, I'm going to play a bit of tongue in cheek here. Look, how many times do us Brits need to come over there, man, to teach you guys a lesson? You know,
Yeah, no, we haven't been winning too many lately, but go ahead.
yeah, I'm just playing, man. I love my American fans. You know, I'm married to American as well, so you know, I'm all good with that. I just like playing. But look, you know what I'm saying. This is going to be a superb fight. It's going to be one of those don't blink fights. Both people, both guys have good boxing skills. Both guys have power. It's going to be a fantastic fight to watch. But yeah, going back to my point, you know, Canelo just seems to be taking challenge upon challenge, challenge upon challenge. And the fact that he can go up and down in weight, look, man, look what happens to fighters when they go up and down in weight. All of a sudden, you know, their power goes, they lose muscle. All of a sudden, you know, they've lost too much or they've gained too much and something's not quite there. They don't carry their power up. And if they do carry their power up, when they come back down, things go wrong. Man, Canelo, he's playing games. And I'm talking games in the way like, you know, in how we talk about and the term that we use in England is what we say. He's taking the fucking piss. He's taking the piss in the way that he can go up and down. And when I say taking the piss, guys, I'm saying that this guy is making, you know, making fun of these fighters over here. This guy's coming in, going up, going down, going up, going down, and he seems to still be effective. Why doesn't that affect him? Because most fighters, when they go up and down, yeah, fighters can continue to go up, but to go up and then come back down and go up and come down in the way Canelo has, and still be successful at what he's doing, you got to give the man credit. He's obviously something special.
Yeah, Canelo gets all the respect. Canelo definitely belongs in the pound for pound number one right now until somebody else proves us anything else. As far as you know, anybody talking about Terrence Crawford being the pound for pound number one, I'll just say that he's got the weakest resume in the pound for pound as of right now. But you know, at the end of the day, everybody can start swinging different ways, and people just favor different fighters. And I think some of the pound for pound is favoritism instead of accolades, if that makes any sense, rope-a-dope. But you know, I gotta still stick with this Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence situation. For us in England, it's frustrating if we don't get this fight. The reason why it'll be frustrating, these are two great welterweights which need to get the fucking fight on.
You're cracking up a bit, Rapstar.
Can you hear me now?
No, I still hear some crackling, man.
Wait, let me try and sort it out. Give me a sec. I'm still crackling, right?
No, it's still crackling, man.
All right, let me go out and come back in.
That's better.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Right. To me, the Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence fight has to happen for us, especially being overseas. If this fight doesn't happen, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a waste of time for the welterweight division. This will be one of those situations which a fight that we've always wanted to see, but it's not happened. This will be bad for American boxing because America's running the welterweight division right now. Am I right, Roper?
I hate to admit it, but yeah, they are.
They're running the welterweight division. The PBC own the welterweight division, apart from Crawford. Crawford and Errol Spence have to get this fucking fight on in 2021. Because let me tell you, I checked Crawford's age. How old do you think Crawford is now?
Crawford, what is he, like 30, 31?
33 going on to 34.
Oh, okay. So Spencer's got youth on him.
Spencer's 30 years old. These guys are not that young. Crawford's not young anymore, bro.
Yeah, but how old is Danny Garcia?
I've got to check how. I think Danny Garcia's 31, 30.
But this is another reason why I was saying that Danny isn't going to be waiting around these young up and comers like all these Conor Benns and that. Danny's not waiting around for him. Danny's in the twilight of his career.
Okay,
That's
Danny's
it.
33 years old. Somebody just sent us
Yeah.
a message.
So how he's not going to be waiting around for these newbies. He's not waiting on them.
I mean, look, man, we got these fights now. I want everybody in the chat to tell me what they want to see. You want to see Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford, Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence, or you want to see Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford? Because if you guys keep wanting Manny Pacquiao to come out of his every year and every 18 months to fight one of these guys and change the game of boxing, I think it'd be embarrassing for boxing. I really think if Manny Pacquiao comes back and just say he does really well or wins one of those fights against Errol and Terrence Crawford, it will just change the game for the young lions. It will actually put the game into a position to say that the other generation was way better than this generation. And in today's world, we want to see the current champions, which are more active, the Terrence Crawfords and the Errol Spencers. We want to see these fights. Me and Roper will come all the way to Texas or Vegas if that fight happened. That's a big fight for the welterweight division. So Terrence Crawford, for me, needs to stop outpricing himself, right? This is what I think. And take the deal of 60-40, what Errol Spence is willing to do a deal with Terrence Crawford, 60-40. So we get 60% Errol Spence, 40% Terrence Crawford. You got all the three belts there. You got WBO, WBC, and IBF, right? There's three belts on the line. That's a huge fight. They both can make loads of money. And let me tell you why it's exciting. Because Errol Spence is back. You know what I mean, Roberto? There's nothing wrong with Errol Spence. He didn't lose a step in the fight. He's actually just got a little bit of ring rust. That's a 50-50 fight. And I want to ask the chat, and I want to ask you now, who do you have winning? Errol Spence Jr. against Terrence the Switch hitter Crawford. Who wins that fight and why? Roper, tell the channel.
Look, I'm gonna after what I've just seen Errol Spence do, I'm gonna go Errol Spence, because the thing is, what he's got straight away over Terrence Crawford, in my opinion, is punch output. Even if you want to put them line by line, Errol Spence is just punching and punching and punching. So you've got to have something very special to be coming and bringing to Errol Spence to push him out of the fight. Now, look, Terrence Crawford, if we want to look back at some of the times when he has been in trouble, we saw him wobble a little bit against Gamboa. Man, if you're getting wobbled by Gamboa, what's as Danny? Look, Danny Garcia is seen as someone who's strong, who's heavy-handed, got real power in both punches. You've got Danny Garcia saying that Spence is stronger than Thurman, he's stronger than Porter. And Porter's another fighter who's meant to be very strong. So if you're saying Spence is even stronger than them, and the way Spence has come after a layoff, Spence is only going to get better in his next fight. And then you're looking at someone who, in Crawford, who's come up and trying to obviously take someone like Spence on. Man, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to lean towards Spence, because when I really think about it, and I saw how many punches Spence was throwing yesterday, I mean, Crawford's got to do something special. Can you see Crawford knocking Spence out? I can't see that. Spence can take a punch. He took Danny Garcia's punch.
Spencer's got a granite chin. Yesterday, in the 4th round, Danny hit him flush. In the 10th round and the 9th round, Danny hit him flush. And Spence took the shots and came back with his own shots.
I think it was only in the 6th round there was another grazing sort of punch, which slightly looked.
There was a headbutt. There was a headbutt too.
Yeah, but there was a grazing punch, I think, in the 6th round. When they showed it on the replay, it was like a grazing punch that hit Spence, and Spence did slightly look like he was a bit off balance. Whether that was a wobble or whether it was just something that caught him off balance, I guess only Spence can tell us. But what he did tell us after the fight is, there was nothing really about Danny Garcia's punches that troubled him. So, I mean, what does that tell you? If Danny Garcia's punches aren't troubling him, is Terrence Crawford's punches going to trouble him?
Well, before I cook it, I want to smash that. I want people to smash that like button, Roberto. We got more than 50 people came in this building right now, and we got over 32 people right now, boxing fans all over the world, linked onto our chat and our channel. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. What I will say about the fight, if Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford fight gets made in 2021, I'm going there. Right, first of all. The second thing I'm going to say is that's such an exciting fight. Terrence Crawford is a switch hitter. Terrence Crawford has great boxing ability that he hasn't been given credit for because of the opponents that he's not been able to find. Terrence Crawford is another fighter who has such great IQ in the ring, right? He adapts with every fighter. Let me ask you this. I've not seen a fighter, yeah? Now, I've seen a few other things I want to say about Terrence Crawford in a second, but I want to give Terrence Crawford his props first. I want to give him his credit. I haven't seen any fighters who adapt to fighters like Terrence Crawford does. Terrence Crawford downloads data pretty well. Yeah, he might lose a round or two, but he's feeding his information from you. He's downloading that data. He's trying to see what you're coming with, and then he comes with his own shit. Have you ever seen a boxer outbox Amir Khan? Robert, that question goes to you.
It depends. It depends what Amir Khan we're talking about. You know, we're talking about the Amir, the old, the more the Amir Khan we've seen recently, or the Amir Khan we've seen old.
But even the recent Amir Khan, I've never seen a man outboxing. Amir Khan was outboxing Canelo in some of those rounds before he got caught. Name me a boxer which is outboxed Amir Khan.
Yeah, but again, I'm going to go back to say which Amir Khan. I don't think the Amir Khan that fought Bud Crawford was the same Amir Khan that we've seen. Look, man, I've seen Amir. I was at the Amir Khan Canelo Alvarez fight. I was ringside. I saw that fight close up, and I saw what Amir Khan was doing, and he had blistering speed. Even then, against Canelo, he had blistering speed. He just wasn't doing that against Crawford. He weren't the same Amir Khan that fought Canelo. He looked like a different fighter. He doesn't look as conditioned as he was. He just doesn't seem like the same fighter. Amir Khan just seems to be someone who wants to just fight big names. That's all he wants to do.
I just wanted to come to this, right? I'm just saying Terrence Crawford adapts to every fighter. And I see Terrence Crawford outboxing Amir Khan. And when he started outboxing Amir Khan, right, I thought to myself, okay, this ain't the Amir Khan that we had before. But this guy's fucking outboxing one of the fastest guys in the game. And the only thing I'm not going to pump it too much is you just reminded me Amir Khan is not the Amir Khan that he was.
No, and you know, you can't be comparing, you know, someone like an Amir Khan with the possibility of someone like a Spence. They're two completely different fighters, and it's basically, you know, who you're putting up against each other. You know, I mean, we can't be taking anything from the Amir Khan fight with Terrence Crawford compared to a Spence fight. What do you think Spence would have done to Amir Khan? Even if you hadn't seen the Crawford fight, what
actually,
do you think
you're right about that. Spence probably would have stopped Amir Khan
absolutely
anyway, right?
Absolutely. So they both stopped him then.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is Terrence Crawford also has great boxing abilities. He's just not been able to prove it with an A+ fighter. He hasn't been able to prove it with an elite welterweight. So this fight's exciting. We got to see what Terrence Crawford can bring to the table in the Errol Spence fight. But I think a lot of the people in the chat, they agree with you. I think a lot of people, I agree with that anyway. I mean, I want to give Terrence Crawford his props. But at the same time, let's not forget, Terrence Crawford gets touched up. Terrence Crawford got hurt in the Eucharist Gamboa fight. Terrence Crawford got hurt recently in that Mean Machine fight, right? So it's not like Terrence Crawford doesn't get touched. He does get touched. And for me, it's a fight of ring intelligence against a man like Errol Spence, who has a phenomenal work rate. How does Terrence Crawford I mean, look, we saw how Errol was using his jab last night, right? I mean, Terrence Crawford is probably going to be the hardest fight for Errol, regardless of what you say. That's Errol's hardest fight in the welterweight division right now.
Yeah, I think that's more based on the level of skill that Terence Crawford has. I don't think it's so much about the power that he has, even though he's got a real nasty streak to him. I don't think it's going to be so much about the power that he's got. I think it's going to be more about the boxing skill set that he's got. So I think that's where the difference is going to be. Whereas Errol Spence has also got a great skill set, but only thing is, I think he's stronger, and I think he's probably got more power. I don't know if you disagree with that.
I certainly think that Errol Spence can take Terence Crawford shots, but I want to know, can Terence Crawford take Errol Spence's work and power and work rate? I mean, look, at the end of the day, man, we got to see the fight. The only thing I don't like about Crawford, right, Roberto, he hasn't fought many great fighters at the welterweight. And Errol Spence has a way more stronger resume and a way more proven track record, right, at the welterweight division. So it's like this, right, Roberto. If you have been, consistently, I don't know, consistently fighting really good fighters at the welterweight division, when you come across another champion, because you've been fighting other champions and other top five athletes in the welterweight division, you're more prepared for that guy by the time that guy comes in that ring to fight you. Does that make sense to you, Robert? You see what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Right? Because Terence Crawford's best wins is Jeff Horn. Terence Crawford's wins Amir Khan, Benavidez, Kel fucking Brook,
Victor Postol.
Victor Postol at the super lightweight, Chris Gamboa. But let's talk about Errol Spence. You want to talk about the welterweight? Chris Algieri, which Manny Pacquiao couldn't take out of the game. He dropped him many times. He couldn't stop him. Errol Spence put a dent in Chris Algieri. Then Lamont Peterson. Right, we're not saying Lamont Peterson was the Lamont Peterson when he fought back in the day, but Lamont Peterson is a good boxer. Errol Spence stopped him too. Then Errol Spence went against a four-weight world champion, Mikey Garcia. And Mikey Garcia, not recently, he put a dent in Jesse Vargas. He beat Jesse Vargas, didn't he? So I'm just saying, Errol Spence won every fucking round against Mikey Garcia. Then he goes into a back-to-back fight with Sean Porter. And we know what Sean Porter brought the title with him. It was 2 world titles on the line. Errol Spence said that he made that fight hard himself. He said, actually, I could have easier made that fight easy, but, I wanted to win a dogfight. So then he goes and beats Danny Garcia. Now, you tell me, who's your money going to be on? Terence Crawford or Errol Spence?
Well, obviously for me, it's got to be Errol Spence.
I want to ask the chat, who's your money on? Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr.? Because Terence Crawford's been performing really well. But do you see him performing like that against the Kell Brook, which was hungry, against Sean Porter, against Danny Garcia? We haven't seen none of those wins from Terence Crawford against some of those guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, another interesting thing may be that if Bud Crawford ends up fighting Manny Pacquiao, because I know there's been talk about that, why can't maybe an Errol Spence think about a Keith Thurman? I know Keith Thurman's looking for a fight. I mean, Errol Spence has already ticked off Sean Porter. He's already ticked off Danny Garcia now, and there's one more left in that realm. So why doesn't he think about maybe looking at Keith Thurman next, just in case the Crawford fight don't happen? That would be a really good fight.
So you would be happy to see Errol Spence, Keith Thurman next?
I would be happy to see that if Crawford is fighting Manny Pacquiao.
Look, I don't want to sound bad here. I'm not favoring either one. I'm not in like this ain't like a horse race for me. I'm with both the fighters, but I've seen Errol Spence fight good fighters already. I want to see fucking Terrence Crawford fight somebody now. I want to see Terrence Crawford fight a Keith Thurman, a Sean Porter, um, Ugas. Even give me Ugas. But give me somebody. You know what I mean, Rope-a-Dope? Give me somebody in that fucking top five, man. Because just as frustrated I was with Danny Garcia not pulling off his shots, and Danny Garcia always, getting left behind in the elite fights and being lazy or whatever his fucking problem is. And you made it very clear. You just think that Danny Garcia doesn't have it when it comes to the welterweight elite fight. There's something missing. Well, Terrence Crawford just needs to fight someone. I've come to that point. I have a lot of, we've had a few arguments and things have become really heated when I join some American panels, especially when they're Crawford fans, right? And these fanboys of Crawford, right? They just want more money than Errol Spence, and they think Crawford's the best thing ever that touched a pair of gloves. Now you got to recognize this from me. It's frustrating to look at Crawford's fucking resume. I'm saying it as it is.
Look, I think now Crawford is at the number one pound for pound spot. I think he's got to justify that position now. You can't just sit up there and stay looking pretty. You got to now put in some fights. You can't be. He's been sitting there arguing, crying about that number one position. Now you've got it. Well, now you've got to fight some real people now. Now fight some real top welterweights. He needs to fight a. I don't think it's right for him to fight Danny Garcia right now, because Danny Garcia has just been beaten by Errol Spence, and everyone's just going to say, well, Errol Spence basically just beat him up, so Danny Garcia was finished anyway. Let Terrence Crawford fight a Keith Thurman. Let Terrence Crawford fight a Sean Porter. That's going to be a good fight. I mean, I'd love to see Keith Thurman and Terrence Crawford. Now that would be a fantastic fight. I'd love to see that fight. So look, man, we got boxing's, as I said last time to you, boxing's alive and kicking. We got some good possible matchups here. Why can Terrence Crawford not be looking for a Keith Thurman? That would make a good fight, because if Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman aren't fighting, Terrence Crawford has the opportunity now where he can possibly look at a Manny Pacquiao. He could look at Keith Thurman. He's got Sean Porter. That's the only three names I want to see against him right now. I think if he fights anyone else, I'm going to start losing respect for him.
Okay, well, let's get to this, right? Because I had a big argument, free smoke, about Terrence Crawford, and I had to shut everyone down. And they literally had to tell me to go because I wasn't taking no shit. I want everybody in the chat to tell me the same thing, like Rope-a-Dope. Who is the minimum opponent that you want to see Terrence Crawford fight? I've mentioned 4 opponents for you guys. Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Ugas, even Danny Garcia once he's back in the mix.
Well, and of course Spence.
And Spence is the top boy. He's the number one welterweight. But what's the minimum fucking opponent that we want for Terrence Crawford? Because as much as I'm a Terrence Crawford fan, I'm getting sick of this shit. And we're going to keep it raw on my channel. We want to know what the fans think. Does Terrence Crawford need to fight a fight which is in the top 5 for me? It has to be, because it'll be so embarrassing if Terrence Crawford pulls out another fight. Like, can you imagine? Kell Brook was good 5 years ago. He pulled him out. Amir Khan was good 5-6 years ago. He pulled him out. There's enough is done now. Who's he going to pull out next? Andre Berto. You want to see Andre Berto, Rope-a-Dope, and Terrence Crawford?
Listen, let me tell you something.
Andre Berto.
Listen, if Crawford don't fight any of these guys now, he needs to fight Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao. These are the fights that are most likely to happen, because I see the 60-40 argument going on for a bit longer. I want to see him up against these guys now, or Ugas. If that doesn't happen, Terrence Crawford needs to vacate that pound for pound number one position.
Hey, listen, for me, when I get, by the time when I pause like that, that's because I'm just either doing something and I'm coming back to you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Right. For me, right, I'm done with it. If Terrence Crawford doesn't fight the next fight as a meaningful opponent, like I'm even going to throw Mikey Garcia in there now. I'm going to help Terrence Crawford out. The reason why I'm going to help him out is I know he's with the Bob Arum camp, so he's got to maneuver around to make these fights. But he got to fucking make these fights, bro. He's got. I'm even giving him Mikey Garcia because I don't want any excuses from Terrence Crawford's camp or his promotion or anybody. And I've given 5 opponents now that Terrence Crawford needs to fight one of those opponents. A lot of people in the chat said that they want to see the Ugas or the Sean Porter fight at least. And it's like people are becoming sick of this shit. And a lot of people in America are sick of this shit. I mean, Terrence Crawford hasn't fought a very meaningful opponent. This is getting really bad now. So it's about time you get Terrence Crawford in there, or you get the Manny Pacquiao fight, or you fight a top 5 guys if you can't get Errol Spence. Because he's not going to get Errol Spence next. You do know that, right, Robidoux?
Yeah, I know that.
He ain't getting Errol Spence next. Errol's got more ideas for what's going to happen with him.
Hey, you know what? I just want to address Joe DC. He's saying Thurman priced himself at the fight, asking for 10 million. Come on, man. You know he's gonna he's gonna adjust that price.
Who said that?
Well, Joe DC is saying that Thurman was obviously, as we know, we heard something about Thurman saying that he wanted 10 million to fight Crawford. Come on, man. Let's all be serious. That's not what he was earning with the other guys. He's not going to be earning that with Crawford. So let's get serious. No one's taking that shit seriously. But he's in.
Okay, let me just tell Joe DC this, and let me tell you, Robidoux. The reason why Keith Thurman is saying that is because he got 10 million for the Manny Pacquiao fight, right? And let me tell everybody this. How much you think Bob Arum and Crawford paid Amir Khan? 7.2 million. So are you telling me that when Keith Thurman prices himself at 10, you guys can't come to a good arrangement and a deal together? Come on. You paid Amir Khan nearly 7.5 million. And you can't pay Keith Thurman 8 million. Come on, bro. Let's stop capping for Terrence Crawford as well. You know what I mean?
Look, we have to remember Amir Khan was also a very big name out there. That's why he got paid, because he's a very big name out there. Keith Thurman's a name as well. But bottom line is, look at the smoke that Keith Thurman's going to bring. You've got to look at who you're fighting and who you're paying how much. Amir Khan was a fight with a big name, a lot easier challenge. So he was paid that money. You want to pay Keith Thurman that same money, and actually more, like 3 million more, and take a fight like that one. No one's going to do that. But Keith Thurman's going to adjust. Keith Thurman's sitting there demanding. If Keith Thurman doesn't step up, Keith Thurman needs action, and Keith Thurman can't be sitting there making demands like that anymore. He just took a loss to, Manny Pacquiao. So Keith Thurman certainly needs to get back in the mix, because at the moment nobody seems to be wanting to give him much of a chance of having a fight. So he right now needs to get back in the mix before he starts having a long inactive period. So he just needs to start getting fighting again and stop making silly demands.
Yeah, but look, for me, mate, right? Keith Thurman pricing himself 10 million is not too overpriced. He's got to start high. Bob Arum can negotiate him back down to the Amir Khan price, right? Do you get where I'm coming at? I mean, okay, Amir Khan brings a country with him, but Keith Thurman has way more solid resume and a name bigger than Amir Khan. Especially right now. I mean, we're talking about right now. You talk about 5 years ago, Amir Khan was a bigger name than Keith Thurman at one point. Remember that?
Yeah, of course he was, yeah. But what I'm saying
now, Keith Thurman is the biggest name for Terrence Crawford's resume. Come on, Robidoux. Terrence Crawford's not fought anybody like Keith Thurman yet.
No, he hasn't. But what I'm saying is, still there needs to be some adjustment. It just depends on what kind of money they think that fight's going to be worth. It's going to be a fight that's going to get some money, but how much is it going to get paid? How much of a pay-per-view price do you think a Crawford and Thurman fight would be?
Let's read some of these. A lot of people are answering to your our conversations right now. We've had like hundreds of messages, and I can't get to them all. But let's talk about the ones which are at the bottom right now. Miguel Robles says, "I agree with Rapstar." Joe DC says the Thurman fight ain't happening. I've lost faith in Thurman. Yak Face says Thurman brings a religion with him. What's it called? Scientology. Uh, he is the fourth up at the top of that religion, bro. People, I'm teaching. Okay, I don't know what he means by that, bro. Do you know what he means by that?
I've heard of the Scientology faith. I didn't know Keith Thurman had something going on with that, because he seems to have married a girl of Indian origin, and I think
She's from Nepal. His wife's from Nepal.
yeah, so Nepalese or whatever. I think they're of the Hindu faith. So what he's doing mixing with Scientology, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, Keith Thurman to me, right? He's a big name, right? So if you want the name, you're gonna have to pay him some money. I think Bob Arum needs to get his fucking hand out of his ass and get Terrence Crawford a good, meaningful fight. We have to get that fight for 2021 so we can build the momentum and build the showdown with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. But I also want to say this, and I don't want to piss all the people off in the boxing world, but we're gonna keep it real. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford might not happen. Have you thought of that? Have you thought of that, Roper?
Look, it could look. That's certainly a possibility. But to be honest, you know what? I think eventually they're going to have to meet. I think it would be bad for both of their legacies if they sit there and don't end up fighting each other over a percentage and a 10% percentage. So I think they both need to just grow their asses up and look to fight. But to be honest, if you were really going to bring it push to shove, I think Errol Spence does deserve 60-40.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. Errol Spence, IBF, WBC, 2 titles on the line. He definitely deserves the major share of the purse. I think 60-40 is a fair price. The fight should happen. It has to happen. Before we leave the building and before we, get out of this topic, there's only one more thing I want to ask everybody about Errol Spence right now is if Errol Spence don't get the Terrence Crawford fight, who does it hurt more? Does it hurt Errol Spence or does it hurt Terrence Crawford? Because as far as I was concerned, Errol Spence has already told a lot of people his best days are going to come when he moves to 154. And he's going to look to clean up the 154 division. So for me, Errol Spence can still make great fights and legacy at 154. So who needs who more? Does Errol need Terrence Crawford or does Terrence Crawford need Errol Spence more? Go ahead, Roper.
Look, man, I think Crawford needs Spence more, and I'll tell you why. Because Spence so far has already knocked over Danny Garcia. He's already knocked over Sean Porter. And who's left? Thurman, if he wants to knock anyone over, or Crawford. If this sticks around and Spencer's got 2 titles, if he wants to walk away, he can. I'm sure he would want to completely unify all 4 belts. But if he can't, he can still move up to 154. Can you see Crawford going up to 154 anytime soon? I don't think so. He's going to want to stick around to that weight, and then he's going to lose the opportunity to fight Spence. Spence got other fish to fry. Crawford's going to be sitting there with the same old scraps that Errol Spence already beat. So really, he's going to end up going up to 154, and if he's successful at 154, he's going to end up outshining Crawford. And then to try and make the fight when he's already up 154 and Crawford's at 147 and trying to make a catch weight, man, that's going to be some bullshit. So I think Crawford needs Spence. Crawford actually needs some more top names on his resume, full stop. And there's guys to fight there. So you know what? Start fighting some of these guys, and you know what? And then maybe eventually we can move to Spence, because Spence is not going to be sitting around here waiting forever. He's already cleaned up 2 of the 3 of those guys. There's only Thurman left. There's maybe Manny Pacquiao around, and there's Crawford. He can keep busy. He's a name. Other people might be willing to fight him, but Crawford needs to get busy. Crawford needs to start showing something, and the only way Crawford can start making an argument for himself is if he all of a sudden turns up and starts knocking out Sean Porter or knocking out uh, um, Keith one-time Furman, or knocking out Manny Pacquiao, then all of a sudden, people start talking about him and he starts coming in that conversation again. But at the moment, it seems like Spence is sort of holding all the cards at the moment. So Crawford really needs to start getting busy, and he needs to think about start fighting some serious people out there, because at the moment the spotlight is more on Errol Spence. People are right now looking at what Errol Spence is doing and talking about Errol Spence. I know he's just had a recent fight, but you've got to look. He's holding 2 belts. He's fighting better names. Crawford's got 1 belt and he's fighting weaker names. So you tell me who's going to leave the better legacy if them two don't fight.
I mean, wait, can you hear me, right? So let me just send this message, because I haven't sent out these wrenches because I'm new to this channel. But Major Key, you definitely getting a wrench from me. Miguel, you've already got a wrench. Don Ramon, you're definitely getting a wrench. Friendly Fight, is it Friendly? I forgot his name. Friendly, you're getting a wrench. Yak Face, you're gonna get a wrench. So everybody's gonna get a wrench. And Major Key, you're getting a wrench. It's just that I haven't sent. I didn't even know how to do the wrenches until the other day. Rope-a-dope. Wrenches mean, the people that you send a wrench to on your channel, they stand out. And if you see somebody coming onto your channel and being abusive or trolls, then these guys who support our channel, they won't take that. So I'm just letting you know, Rope-a-dope,
Well, thanks for letting me know that, man. Because
because they're all asking me for it. I'm feeling bad because
that's good, man. When I launch,
you know what? Major Key's a good guy, man. Papa Kaplan as well. I gotta give Papa Kaplan, Joe DC, Major Key, Good Boy Sports and News, Yak Face. These guys have been with me from when I started my channel, bro.
That's awesome.
So,
well, that's good, man.
I can't forget them.
When I launch soon, I'll make sure that I'll be sending you my first wrench.
Yeah, but and when Rope-a-dope is going to set up his podcast and his channel, I definitely want the first wrench, and then you can decide who else you want to give your wrenches to afterwards, bro. That's for you to decide. I'm not going to tell
look
you.
Out, man. Look out. Watch this space, guys.
Hey, listen, I'm going to give everybody a wrench who's ever great. And Jeff's already got a wrench. Miguel's already got a wrench. I only knew last week how to do those things, Rope-a-dope. You have to go to your chat and then it says make them a moderator. So I'm going to start doing that for everybody in the channel. I do want to say this, though. In our channel, we don't take any bullshit. We want to keep it factual, and we want to talk about this game of boxing that we love. If you're going to come here and troll and be stupid and start being racist and stuff, then, you need to get the fuck away from our channel. You know what I mean, Rope-a-dope?
Yeah, we don't play that shit, man. We don't play. No, say it's nothing but love in this room.
Nothing but love for the game, love for the boxing, science of the game, the sweet science of boxing. We love this game. We grew up to it. Rope-a-dope and me have been grown up to this game for years. You know what I mean? Not to mention how many, let's not say how many thousands of days that we've trained in the game. You know what I mean? Rope-a-dope. We love the game of boxing. You know what I mean? You can actually say it's inherited into us now, right? It's part of our life, isn't it, Rope-a-dope?
100, man, 100.
So before everything else, we want the fight with Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. That's the only biggest fight we need. But I want to ask you one more last thing, Rope-a-dope. I love Errol Spence. I'm a big fan of Errol Spence. I'm a big fan of Terrence Crawford. But Errol does not want to call out Canelo Alvarez. You do not. You want to stay away from Canelo Alvarez, bro. Canelo Alvarez is a fighter who's a proven 160, 168-pound fighter. So if Errol Spence thinks that he's going to get a Canelo fight in the next 1 year, I think that's a bad move for him. Because I'm a big fan of Errol. But that's not a good matchup for Errol for me. How do you feel about that, Rope-a-dope?
Well, I think it's a bit early to speculate. I think what we need to remember is we're looking at Errol Spence as a 147 fighter. I think what we got to remember is if we ever see, and I'm sure we will, if we ever see Errol Spence go up to 154, we're not going to be looking at the 147 Errol Spence anymore. There's going to be things to see. There's going to be things to see, like, does he still keep his speed? Does he still keep his power? Does he take his power up? How does it work for him? These are all the things that are going to be needed to be looked at before he goes up, because as we've seen, some fighters carry their power up, some don't. Some fighters carry their speed up, some don't. Some fighters carry both up. So this is what we're going to need to see. And I think it's a bit too soon to be talking about that, because we still could be seeing Errol Spence sitting at welter for quite some time.
Yeah, but Errol Spence also looks like he's draining at the welterweight. I don't see Errol Spence staying at welterweight for more than, I say, a year and a half. I'll give it 16, 18 months, and that's it. He'd be done at that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot can happen in 18 months. But again, looking at someone 147 and looking at someone 154. I mean, personally, once we Errol takes care of some business at welter at this weight, I'm actually looking forward to seeing him go up to 154, because I mean, you can see that Errol's got room to fill out. And it's going to be good to see. I mean, you imagine Errol Spence, a bigger, stronger Errol Spence. He's already really strong at this weight. So seeing him at 154, it's going to be a different story, because obviously there's going to be bigger, stronger men over there, taller men. So that's going to be interesting to see. But, like you
got
said,
Tony Harrison. You got that guy. What's his name? Jamal Hurd. Tony Harrison. You've got, what's the other guy's name? J Rock, right? But Jamal Charlo's going to move up. And then Jamal Charlo's supposed to move up to 168. And they're going to make way for Errol Spence at 154. They've been planning this for a long time. Jamal will move to 160. Jamal will go at 168. Errol will come to 154 and try and dominate that division. We got to look at how it's going to go in the future. Does Errol Spence become stronger? Because I reckon he definitely brings a lot more strength at 154. I think Errol Spence will be comfortable at 154. So are we going to see the better days of Errol Spence in the near future? Are we going to see him as I'm asking you this, Roper. Can Errol Spence improve his game when he moves up? That's what I'm asking.
look, I'm sure he'll find some success moving at 154, but whether he will completely clean up at 154, I'm not quite too sure about that. I think we got some strong, good guys at 154. So it's not going to be. I don't think he'll be as dominant at 154 as he's been at 147. That's my opinion. I rate him, but whether he'll be the Spence that we saw at 147 at 54, I'm not quite sure. I don't think so.
Well, there's another channel in America that I want you to subscribe to. He's a friend of mine now. After this boxing media, me and him have become friends. His name is Speak Your Mind Sports. D. Jefferson's in the building again. And, he's always cooking it up about boxing. He loves boxing. And actually, what I like about Speak Your Mind Sports, he speaks a lot about our British fighters. He doesn't neglect the fighters in our side of the world. You know what I mean, Rope-a-Dope? It's nice to get media, but we don't want media just covering the fighters that they fucking like and just in their own country. That's not boxing. You see what I mean? He at least covers boxing all over the world like we do. So he's turned around and said that just now, he's just turned around and said that Errol Spence has 2 more fights at the welterweight division before he moves up. So it seems like he's going to move up anyway at 2022. So this is it though. Terrence Crawford has to fucking make this fight by next year or the fight's done. This fight's never going to happen. And I think if this fight never happens, it'll just be one of those situations of 2 great fighters in our era never made that fight happen. And then who's going to be the guy who's going to change the whole boxing game again? Manny Pacquiao fight one of those guys. Do you see for me where the frustration is, Robidoux?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a messy situation, but they're just going to have to come to the table. Everybody knows that this is the fight everyone wants to see. They're going to have to just come to the table.
Yeah, they're going to have to come to the table, man. And you know what? At the end of the day, we got great fights to look forward to. And one thing I like about this energy from you, Rope-a-Dope, before we even started, the first thing you said to me, and you sent me a message, I think it was yesterday or today, you were so happy just to see Errol Spence back in the game. So now we are going to get some good fights. And this fight with Terrence Crawford can happen because Errol Spence is back. Am I right, Roper?
Yeah, no, I agree. Errol Spence looked as good as ever. I think he's going to be a problem for anyone at the welterweight division. And to be honest, there's fights out there to be made. There's still, I mean, I know Danny Garcia's lost a few times now, um, but there's other fights to be made. There's Keith Thurman who's out there. There's Sean Porter. Well, there's Keith Thurman definitely sitting there for Spence. Manny Pacquiao sitting there and Crawford sitting there. So he's got three fights there to be had. And then I agree with with your man, speak your
D
mind,
Jefferson.
sports talk. That
Yeah, Speak Your Mind Sports. What did he say again?
yeah, he
We've got a
said
lot of sport channels coming in right now. We've got
yes.
Black Star Sports TV. He's another good channel in America. He just came in. Salute to you, Black Star. He's another good channel out there. So they just came in through. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, so like I said, Spencer's got 2, 3 notable fights to be had at the welterweight division, and then yeah, I see him going up. He did look a bit drained, even though he still said that he was strong. He looked a bit drained, but that's probably he's worked really hard. He conditioned himself very well. Maybe he conditioned himself a bit too much because they didn't want to take any chances after the accident that he had. But yeah, this is a fight. That 2, 3 fights, I agree. I think he'll be moving up.
Yeah, 2 fights for me. I reckon Errol Spence. But those 2 fights again, who are we going to have? Keith Thurman, and it can possibly be Ugas. If Manny Pacquiao and Terrence Crawford doesn't make the fight, then where does Errol Spence go from there? You know what I mean? He got to keep active. He got to stay. And, they're money fights for him anyway. And let's be honest. If you're not going to give 10 million to fucking Keith Thurman to fight Terrence Crawford, well, they're going to pay him a lot of money to fight Errol Spence. Am I right, Roberto?
Yeah, sorry, repeat that question, please, Rapstar.
So if you ain't going to pay Keith Thurman the money to fight Terrence Crawford, well, Al Heyman can make the fight with Errol Spence and Keith Thurman and make that money with Keith Thurman himself.
Well, yeah, look, there's always that fight to be had. Look, man, the bottom line is Errol Spence and Crawford are both looking for fights now. Not so much Errol Spence immediately, but Terrence Crawford as well. Soon these guys are going to be looking for fights. Where are they going to go? There's only a few names out there that they can go for. So sooner or later, agreements are going to have to get made, and people are going to have to get paid. It just depends how much they get paid, but these negotiations can only start happening in the next couple of months. I think we're going to get Christmas and the New Year out of the way, and I think come middle of January we're going to start seeing some negotiations starting.
Okay, so well then looks like to us, right, that far as we're concerned, we're happy with Errol Spence. What we saw in England last night, I'm happy with him. Roper Dope's happy with him. I spoke to loads of fans in England yesterday. We don't think Errol's lost one step. In fact, I think Errol is coming a bit more focused. Errol, to me, yesterday showed me that he used his intelligence and his smartness in that fight. He was using his boxing, his reach, his jab. I mean, what else would he have done before the car crash anyway? Do you see what I mean, Roper Dope? We know Errol walks you down. We know Errol outworks you. So Errol did everything that we know he can do. Am I right?
Absolutely. Errol Spence came as the Errol Spence, the truth as we know him. And that's, I think, exactly what he's going to do. But you see, Danny Garcia is a different kind of fighter to a Keith Thurman. And he's a different kind of fighter to maybe a Bud Crawford. I don't think the other guys will fight Errol Spence in the same way. And that's why I'm so excited to see these next fights coming up, because it's not going to be like the Danny Garcia and Errol Spence fight. There'll be different fights.
Yeah, every fight's make. Look, we say styles make fights, right? And the only person that I think in the welterweight division gives Errol Spence any trouble right now is probably Terrence Crawford. And I'm not going to write Manny Pacquiao off. And the reason why I'm not going to write him off, he might have sat at home yesterday and said, you know what? Errol didn't stop Danny. I could beat Danny better than that. So don't be surprised if Manny Pacquiao, because Manny Pacquiao wants 20 million per fight. You know that, right? The minimum they pay Manny Pacquiao, that's 20 million a fight.
Hey, listen, you know what? I've got to give a shout out to your man, Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. He came out with something and he said, Errol is better after the accident than he was before the accident. And you know what? I've got to agree with that. And I'll tell you why, because, you know, Errol did say something. He said he felt like he's been given a second chance. So I think he's had a chance to, you know, have a real good time, good amount of time to sit back and think about his life and how precious life is. And Derek James kept on saying that the first thing Errol Spence kept on asking him is, "Can I still fight? Can I still fight?" So I think he's found a new love for the game, even though he said, "Well, I never fell out of love with it." I just think he's fallen more in love with it. So I agree with what you're saying there. Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. Big up to you from London.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I've been speaking to a lot of people, bro, and Errol looks like a way more focused, and he does look hungry in the ring. But I'm gonna say this as well, though. He was a little tiny bit, some of his timing was off. But that's due to the ring rust, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that he said. He said he'd give himself a B. But I mean, look, man, I mean, you could say he was a little bit off, but he was on enough to beat a top contender in Danny Garcia. So I think he was being a bit harsh on himself. I think he surpassed a lot of people's expectations for what they were expecting. I don't think anyone expected him to be as dominant as he was. So I think he's
Can
been a
Errol
bit
Spence
hard.
take a heavy shot? Did you see Errol Spence take clean shots yesterday?
I mean, there was a couple in there. I'm going to say there was a couple in there, but he seemed to take him. But his defense is just so good that, you know, you're always trying to look about how many heavy shots that he took. But he definitely took some power punches. He took less power punches than what Errol Spence overall put out there. Um, so Errol Spence gave out more power punches than Danny Garcia did. Um, but again, you know, I think it was like at a 70% to a 30% range. That say, I think maybe one of the times that I looked, it showed like Errol Spence had thrown about 180 power punches, and I think Danny Garcia had thrown about 120. So that's what the numbers were saying from when I looked.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, right, as we are coming in from London, live and direct to everybody around the world, we want to see, and Roper wants to see, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, 2021. Let's get these fights on, mate. Let's stop capping, like you guys say in America. Stop capping. Let's get these fights on. Terrence Crawford, if you got anyone in the camp or anybody's listening, man, we love you as well, bro. Terrence Crawford, you bring a lot to the table, man. You're a special talent. But you've got to fight now. You got to fight the real people in the game now, Terrence Crawford. Go get Errol Spence. Go make the boxing world exciting. Because before I leave this show right now in a minute, can you imagine, Roper Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, 2021. Can you imagine what that would do for the game of boxing in our era today? Can you just imagine that?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that one thing I want to say is that we have been seeing good matches come up. Is, you know, a lot of people. I mean, always whenever I hear these, some of the casuals say, "Oh, boxing's not there anymore." What are you talking about, man? We've seen some great fights. We've seen some great people come together in the ring in recent years. People just forget too quickly, but we've seen some fantastic fights, and that will just be another one. And you know, more often than not, they do get made. So I do expect this fight to get made as well. It has to be.
All right, well, we got big fights to look forward to still. We got Canelo, Callum Smith. We got Anthony Joshua Pulev. We've got Shakur Stevenson fighting soon. So we've still got some fights as we go into the end of this year. We've got some more fights as we go into the end of the year. And then I want everybody to get ready for January the 2nd. We got Ryan Garcia with our own Luke Campbell. And that's not going to be an easy fight for fucking Ryan Garcia. I know a lot of people in America think that Ryan Garcia is going to walk through Luke Campbell. And they're not giving a lot of respect to Luke Campbell. I just want to let you know this, Robodo.
Yeah,
But
well,
they better
Luke
watch
Campbell.
out.
Well, Luke Campbell went 12 rounds with Vasily Lomachenko, so he's definitely someone who has done well, and I think he's definitely a top contender. And I think this will definitely be a great test for Ryan Garcia. I think here's where we're going to see what he's really made of.
Yeah, but I mean, we got to know what Ryan Garcia's made of. We know Luke Campbell, he came short with some of those good fights, like Linares and Lomachenko. We know he came short, but he still was in the fight. He gave a good accountability of himself. You know what I mean? We just got to see what Ryan Garcia does. People think that Ryan Garcia is going to stop Luke Campbell within 3-4 rounds. I don't see that for sure. I definitely don't fucking see that. Luke Campbell's an Olympian. He's got very good amateur pedigree. He's going to make you work in that fight if you're going to beat him. It's not going to be an easy walk in the park. But if Ryan Garcia rolls through Luke Campbell, he's going to be the next lightweight they're going to be talking about. They're not going to be talking about Devin Haney. They're going to be talking about Ryan Garcia. Because Teofimo Lopez already proved to us from England, we're looking at what Teofimo Lopez has been doing. And there's nothing but pure especially from me. I'm a big fan of Teofimo Lopez. And I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to say it. Everybody knows this on my channel. I actually bet money on Lomachenko to beat Teofimo. I did. And I lost money. And I hardly ever lose. You know, out of my last 12 bets, I'm up 11. But on that bet, I lost money. And I just became more of a fan of Teofimo Lopez.
Well, I don't think anyone could hate you for that, man. I think everyone was going for Lomachenko in that fight. Lomachenko pretty much looked like the Matrix as we saw him. But, Lomachenko did say that he had a problem with his hand. So who really knows? I'm sure Lomachenko is going to want that smoke again.
Yeah, I mean, Lomachenko for me is still one of the best lightweights in the game. I mean, I can't really put Ryan Garcia number 2. I got Lomachenko number 2. I've got between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia for number 3. But I want to, once Ryan Garcia shows me, if he shows a great performance against Luke Campbell, he's definitely going to get my vote. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all about your resume, who you're actually fighting. Who's on your record? Who's on your resume? You see what I'm saying? These are very important factors when you're going into fighting great fights.
Yeah, well, I mean, that time's coming up now where a lot of these guys, they're starting to come to that stage of their careers where they're having to start fighting names and people where, we're going to now start finding out about who the top dog is. Eventually, they're all going to have to come together and fight each other. So it's good. It's a good time. It's a good time for boxing. We've got a few real talented guys out there, and I guess we'll see who the best of the bunch is. I mean, obviously, you saw Tank Davis's performance recently as well, and what he just did to.
Yeah, but Tank Davis knocked the fuck out of Leo Santa Cruz. But Leo Santa Cruz, he was never the great. He was a good fighter at 122. He's not a 130-pound fighter. I mean, yeah, Tank Davis knocked him out. You can't take that away from Tank Davis. But I'm glad you reminded me about Tank Davis because he has a belt at 135 pounds too. Yep, he does. So, yeah, Tank Davis, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Lomachenko. But the top boy for me is Teofimo Lopez now at lightweight. And the top one guy for me in welterweight, which is for you as well, is Errol Spence Jr., right?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment, all eyes are on Teofimo because, he's the man that beat the man. So at the moment, obviously, everyone's eyes on him.
Yeah, I want to play him that Tupac song when he walks in the ring next time. What was that song? All Eyes on Me.
Well, yeah, 100, man, 100.
Yeah,
But,
Teofimo definitely is the man. Teofimo's definitely set the pace. He's set everybody. He's showing all the young guys, if you want to be great, you better fight great people. The man beat Nakatani. The man beat Richard Comey. I think that was for the IBF belt, right? Yeah, he knocked out Richard Comey and then goes and beats the pound for pound. Some people had Lomachenko number 1 pound for pound. And Teofimo goes and beats him as well. I mean, if you ask me, who would be your fighter of 2021? I haven't asked you that yet. Who's your 2021 fighter? 2020 fighter going into 2021.
Sorry, I just lost you there, Rapstar.
Who's your 2020 fighter?
Yeah, we got a connection problem, man.
Hey, can you hear me now?
No, not yet.
Wait, let me get that connection again. Can you hear me now?
No, I don't hear you, man. Crackling.
Oh, is it bad? Are we crackling still?
Yeah, still crackling, man. Still
All right,
crackling.
let me go out and come back because I want to
Okay.
exit the building as well. So give me a sec. All right, can you hear me now? We're leaving the building. Hey, I just want everybody to know we had a great show today. We got Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford fight is what we want to see. That's the only fight we want to see in 2021. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, and Teofimo Lopez. He's doing great things at the lightweight. We would like to see Teofimo Lopez against a Ryan Garcia if he wins against Luke Campbell, or even if Teofimo wants to shut the fans up and give Devin Haney a chance. If not, move up and maybe fight the winner of Josh Taylor and Ramirez. But you know, we've had a great chat today. Robert Doug's back. Where did you go, bro? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear
All right,
you.
yeah. So let's let all the fans and all the subscribers and the chat know we're getting late over here in England. We're gonna catch them up next week, same time, same place. Is that cool, Robert Doug?
That's cool, man. That's cool. Peace out, everyone.
Yeah,
Peace out.
peace out to the chat. Peace out to everyone. Let's get ready for next week. We got Canelo and Callum Smith coming up soon on the 12th of December. And I think there's another card on the 12th. I keep forgetting. What's that card in England on the fucking 12th? I've got to check again. It keeps, I know when Canelo and Callum is fighting, there's another card on the same day in England. But I've got to go check that. But look, it's been a great chat.
It's Joshua Pulev on the 12th, isn't it?
Oh, yes, we got Joshua Pulev, right?
Joshua Pulev.
Yeah, we got Joshua. Look, man, me and you will talk about the Joshua Pulev fight next week. I think me and you already know who's going to win that fight or who we've kind of have got winning that fight. I got Anthony Joshua stopping Pulev before 8 rounds.
Yeah. I'll see that. We'll talk about that one, though, the next time we're...
Yeah, we'll talk about the Joshua Pulev fight. But look, Errol Spence is back. Errol Spence is back in the game, the #1 welterweight in the world. IBF WBC champion is back. And big fights to look forward to. And let's get ready. Terrence Crawford, if you make that fight with Errol Spence, me and Ropadok, we're coming. We're coming. I know we got the wives and the kids, but we're coming. Right? We're coming to that fight, man. So let's make that fight. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, 2021. That's what I want to see. To the chat, peace out to the chat. Peace out to everybody. I hope everybody, till next time, we'll catch you soon. God bless all of you. We out.
Stay safe, people.
Yeah, be safe. We out.